Welcome to Martha Runs the World, a podcast with a new take on running, fitness, and all things health-oriented. I'm Martha Hughes, your host, and each week I present a new topic that is of interest to all runners. Hi, and welcome to episode 281 of Martha Runs the World. Thank you so much for joining me. I truly appreciate it. How's your running going? Mine's going really well. I gotta say, it's so fun to be back on the running horse, as they say, and back into training. And I will talk about that after today's topic, which is running in the heat. As the weather heats up, our running should adapt to help us get the most out of the sunnier and warmer days. During my trail run this weekend, it was warmer, and as I said, I will talk more about that. It was only in the high 70s, but it certainly felt warmer than it has been lately. And it was warmer than what I was used to during my runs. And I realized halfway through that I didn't bring enough water for as long as I wanted to go, so I had to shorten my run by a couple miles. I only brought one bottle of water, and I should have brought two. So I was a little dehydrated, probably a lot, by the time I was done with my run. I mean, for most, that one bottle would be enough, but I'm going slow. I'm not a fast runner anymore, and I did a lot of hiking in between my running, so I really needed two bottles. Running in the heat takes practice. I might be the odd one out here, but once I'm adjusted to the warmer weather, I really like running in it. I'm not going to say the real scorching Death Valley temperatures, but as long as it's dry heat, I really enjoy running in the 80s and 90s. I like it. But even if you don't like it, it helps to be acclimated to it. Acclimation plays an important process. If you're well trained to run in the heat, your body is going to have an easier time coping with it. Try to do your workouts and training outside rather than in the comfort of an air-conditioned gym so that you are better adjusted for warmer temperature levels, especially if you plan to exercise outdoors in the long term. So yeah, it may hurt at first and it may be really hard at first, but try doing them outside. The more runs you do outside in the warmer weather, the better off you're going to be in that warmer weather. Research shows that running in the heat, especially for those not adapted to doing so, can make it difficult for your body to maintain its core internal body temperature, which is necessary for optimal body performance and survival. This, coupled with other physiological strains, include rising heart rate, can impair your endurance and exercise capacity. That's why you have to get used to it. While any temperature that really makes you feel too uncomfortable may be too hot for running, the Road Runners Club of America places the cap on 98.6 degrees. Some runners can get above that, and obviously many runners do. They do run bad water in much high temperatures, and many runners do go out in higher temperatures. You do have to acclimatize yourself to those temperatures, and I'll talk about that a little later in the show. It's also important to point out that heat isn't always the top concern. Humidity is also a predictor of whether or not it's safe to run outside. And I really dislike humidity. Hot humidity is just killer. And I guess if I got used to it, it would be okay. But I just don't like it. The dry heat is I kind of like. While running in a humid climate, the additional moisture from the atmosphere sticking to your skin limits your body's ability to cool off by interfering with sweat evaporation, which is how we cool off. Pouring cool water in your head can help, but if it's very hot and humid, it can quickly turn into a not safe running condition. So you have to be really, really careful. Even if you're totally soaked just from running outside in the heat and humidity, you may not realize that you haven't drank enough water. You haven't gotten enough liquid in your system. So you have to make the extra effort to drink more fluids. Here's some other ways to help yourself in the heat. Adjust your expectations. Slow down, especially if it's your first few times in the year running in the heat. Yes, it's going to be warmer, so just slow down. In the first run in the heat, don't think you're going to get that 20 miles out. You may not. You may have to cut it back a little bit and go a little slower. Don't be like me. Bring extra water with you. And water may not be enough. Make sure you're getting enough electrolytes. So bring a couple Noon tabs. And I always have problems pronouncing that. I always want to say none, but I know it's noon. So if I ever mispronounce that, I apologize. Or Tailwind, or whatever you want to do for your electrolytes, bring those with you. Make sure to dress appropriately for the heat. Light colored clothing is best. There's also clothing you can get that is UV protected, including long sleeve shirts, shorts, and leggings. So if you want to completely cover yourself up and protect yourself from the heat, from the sun and the UV rays, you can. It's also suggested to wear a visor if you want to wear one, but I'm thinking that a visor doesn't protect the top of one's skull. A runner's trucker's cap does, though, because it has the mesh on it, and that will protect your top, and you can still get coolness on the top of your head, and you can pour water in your head. So you choose what is best for you. And don't forget the sunscreen. If you're not wearing a hat, if you're not wearing long sleeve shirts, if you're not wearing leggings, you have to use sunscreen. It's really important. And it's also advised when running in the heat to not run on an empty stomach. So if you're fasting, you don't run on an empty stomach. Of course, don't fill up and don't eat a huge meal before you run, but try to eat something like a piece of toast with peanut butter, a little jam on it or something, but just eat something before you run. The body requires additional energy to cool down. So if you have a completely empty stomach or empty energy, you may not have a good time when you're out there running. Now, the main source of heat in normal conditions is the body's own internal heat. Called metabolic heat, it is generated within the body by the biochemical processes that keep us alive and by the energy we use during physical activity. There are 4 categories of heat transfer. Conduction, direct transfer of heat. By conduction, the body gains or loses heat when it comes into direct contact with hot or cold object. Breathing exchanges heat because the respiratory system warms the inhaled air. When exhaled, this warmed air carries away some of the body's heat. However, the amount of heat exchanged through conduction and breathing is normally small enough to be ignored in assessing the heat load on the body, so you really don't have to worry about that too much. The other 3 are much more important. Convection, air or water moving over your skin. The convection is the process by which the body exchanges heat with the surrounding air. So that's like your convection oven, right? So when in a hot weather day, you're living in a convection oven. The body gains heat from hot air and loses heat in cold air, which comes in contact with the skin. Convection heat exchange increases with increasing airspeed and increased differences between air and skin temperature. Radiation, direct or indirect transfer of heat from electromagnetic waves. Again, like a microwave oven, right? Radiation is a process by which the body gains heat from surrounding hot objects, such as hot metal, furnaces, or steam pipes, and loses heat to cold objects, such as chilled metallic surfaces without contact with them. The sun is a common example of a source of radiant heat. No radiant heat gain or losses occurs when the temperature of surrounding objects is the same as the skin temperature. Evaporation, conversion of liquid to gas. Evaporation of sweat from the skin cools the body. Evaporation occurs more quickly, and the cooling effect is much more noticeable with high wind speeds and low relative humidity. In hot and humid workplaces or in hot and humid environments, the cooling of the body due to sweat evaporation is limited because the air cannot accept more moisture. In hot and dry environments, the cooling due to sweat evaporation is limited by the body of sweat produced by the body. Now, these methods work to heat you up or cool you down. Acclimation to hot weather can take place over a number of days and help these methods work to make your training in summer the best it can be. Now, keep in mind when acclimating to heat, it will make you tired. You should do it 7 to 10 days in a row. Now, you can run or walk in the heat. I suggest taking walks in the heat or running in the heat, or you can use a dry sauna or a hot tub. Any of these methods will help you acclimate, but it is said that you should do this 7 to 10 days in a row. Now, if you're like me and live in an area where you're not going to get 7 to 10 days of hot weather in a row, I'm not sure what you can do. If you have access to a dry sauna or a hot tub, then I guess you can do it. When the air temperature or humidity rises above the range for comfort, problems can arise. The first effects relate to how you feel. Exposure to more heat can cause health problems and may affect performance. As the temperature or heat burden increases, people may feel increased irritability, loss of concentration and ability to do mental tasks, loss of ability to do skilled tasks, or heavy work or heavy physical things like running, I guess. So running will definitely be affected. In moderately hot environments, the body goes to work to get rid of excess heat so it can maintain its normal body temperature. The heat rate increases to pump more blood through the outer body parts and skin so that excess heat is lost to the environment and sweating occurs. These changes place additional demands on the body. Changes in blood flow and excessive sweating reduce a person's ability to do physical and mental work. Manual work creates additional metabolic heat and adds to the body heat burden. And I'll put the link that I found this on, but I got a lot of this off the Canadian's version of OSHA, of Worksite Environmental Safety. So a lot of this applies to workplace safety, but it also applies to running. It was a pretty cool website, actually. The risk of health-related illness varies from person to person. A person's general health influences how well the person adapts to heat. Those with extra weight often have trouble in hot situations as the body has difficulty maintaining a good heat balance. Age, particularly people 45 years or older, poor general health, and a low level of fitness will also make people more susceptible to feelings of extremes in heat. Medical conditions can also increase how susceptible the body is. People with heart disease, high blood pressure, respiratory disease, and uncontrolled diabetes may need to take special precautions. In addition, people with skin diseases and rashes may be more susceptible to heat. Other factors include circulatory system capacity, sweat production, and the ability to regulate electrolyte balance. Oh, those big words, they get me every time, I tell you. Substances, both prescriptive or otherwise, can also have an impact on how people react to heat. And that's true. There are some prescriptions that people have that tell you to avoid heat, avoid sunlight. Like many antibiotics tell you not to go in direct sunlight. So be careful of that. Always check with your pharmacist or doctor if you have any questions. It's really important to follow the directions to a T. Heat exposure causes the following illnesses. Heat edema is swelling which generally occurs among people who are not acclimatized to working in hot conditions. Swelling is most often noticeable in the ankles. And that would really affect people running. You can really feel that in your ankles. And maybe that's why sometimes when it's really hot and I push myself really far, I get ankle cramps. That might be the start of that. So I've got to be really careful about that. Heat rashes are tiny red spots on the skin with severe itching when in a hot, humid environment. The spots are the result of inflammation caused when the ducts of sweat glands become plugged. In most cases, heat rash will disappear when the individual returns to a cooler environment. Heat cramps are sharp pains in the muscles that may occur alone or be combined with one of the other heat stress disorders. Cramps are caused by salt imbalance from heavy sweating. Salt can build up the body if water lost through sweating is not replaced. Inadequate fluid intake often contributes to this problem. That person should be moved to a cooler area and should hydrate. Heat exhaustion caused by loss of body water and salt through excessive sweating. Signs and symptoms of heat exhaustion include heavy sweating, weakness, dizziness, visual disturbances, intense thirst, nausea, headache, muscle cramps, breathlessness, palpitations, and skin which is pale, cool, and moist. Do not leave the person alone. Get medical attention, move to a cool area, and have the person drink cool water if they are able. This can lead to stroke if left untreated, so it's very serious. Heat syncope is heat-induced dizziness and fainting induced by temporarily insufficient flow of blood to the brain while a person is standing. It can also be caused by vigorous physical activity of 2 or more hours before the fainting happens. So it can really happen in running, in distance running especially. It occurs mostly among unclimatized people. It is caused by the loss of body fluids through sweating and by lowered blood pressure due to pooling of blood in the legs. Recovery is rapid after rest in a cool area. Heat stroke is the most serious type of heat illness. It is a medical emergency. Signs of heat stroke include having a high blood pressure and complete or partial loss of consciousness. There can also be confusion, irrational behavior, convulsions, and hot, dry skin. Sweating is not a good sign of heat stress, as there are 2 types of heat stroke. The classical, where there is little or no sweating, and that usually occurs in children or persons who are chronically ill or elderly, and exertional, where body temperature rises because of strenuous exercise or work, and sweating is usually present. Heat stroke requires immediate first aid and medical attention. Remove excess clothing, drink and spray water. Delayed treatment may result in death. Please, this is very serious. Take care of your health, and take care of your health this summer in the heat. What are symptoms and first aid steps for heat exhaustion? Symptoms of heat exhaustion may start suddenly and include nausea or irritability, dizziness, muscle cramps or weakness, feeling faint, headache, fatigue, thirst, heavy sweating, high body temperature. First aid for heat exhaustion includes get medical aid, stay with the person until help arrives, move to a cooler, shaded location, remove as many clothes as possible, including socks and shoes, apply cool, wet cloths or ice to head, face, and neck, spray with cool water, encourage the person to drink water, clear juice, or a sports drink. What are the symptoms and first aid steps for heat stroke? Heat exhaustion may quickly develop into heat stroke. Some of the symptoms are hot, dry skin or profuse sweating, confusion, loss of consciousness, seizures, very high body temperature. And for first aid includes call 911 immediately. Heat stroke is a medical emergency. Stay with the person until help arrives. Move to a cooler, shaded location. Remove as many clothes as possible, including socks and shoes. Wet the person's skin and clothing with cool water. Apply cold, wet cloths or ice to head, face, neck, armpits, and groin. And do not try to force the person to drink liquids. For heat stroke, do not force the person to drink liquids. So as you can see, it's extremely important to take care of yourself in the heat. Acclimatize if you can. Get yourself used to it. And one of the things you can do is go out and run at early hours. And you folks live in Florida and those places, you have to get up very, very early to go out and run because it just gets horribly hot during the day. Florida, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, you all know that. I'm not telling you anything new, but just be careful out there and take care of yourself because it's definitely worth it. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my trail run Saturday and my recovery run yesterday. I just had the best trail run. It was so fun. I went a couple miles shorter than I wanted to, but it was still fun. I went up to the headlands, and this is only my second time since my fall that I went on the trail that I fell on. But I felt really good. I went on some steep hills and went down some steep hills, and I wasn't that out of breath. I felt in much better shape. And it was really good. The weather was in the 70s. It felt warm, but not too hot. It was just a great, great morning. I went up early enough that I got home by noon. It was a wonderful day. It felt so good to be out there and to be running when I could. One thing, though, I'm still a little skittish on single track trails. It's going to take me a while to start running those. I was running on the fire trails, the fire roads, the flat fire roads and the downhill fire roads. I was running on those just fine. But I was a little nervous to run on single track. So it's going to take me a little while to get back into running on those. I hiked those. I hiked as fast as I could on those. But I'm a little afraid. So I got to get over that. But I think as I get stronger, as I get better at it, I'll be able to go out there. And when I do start running on them, I'm going to be much stronger than I was last December. One of the things is I pushed myself too hard, too soon, and I wasn't ready for it. So I have to be ready for it. And I'm going to come back stronger, much stronger. This December, I'm going to be much stronger than I was last December. That's my goal, and that's what I'm going to achieve. And then yesterday I went on a recovery run about 3 miles, 3.5, I guess. And that felt really good. I was a little sore. I pushed myself hard. And it felt really good to just go ahead and push myself hard to get a good run in. And that was it. Yeah. So this week I'm working my long hours. So I'll work through the weekend, but I'll get a run in after work on Saturday. But yeah, I'm finding times to get my run in, to get my strength training in, and I'll keep going. So that is what's happening with me. So thank you so much for listening to my show. I appreciate it. You know I always, always do. The website is martharunstheworld.com, and I'll keep a link to the Canadian website that I got a lot of this information from. It's very, very helpful. Like I said, it's about workers' safety and workers' injuries, but it can apply to running as well. I looked around for a lot of information, and this was the best one that I could find. It was most thorough, and I'll include that on the website. Also on the website, if you want to become a Patreon patron, you can for just a couple bucks a month if you want, or if you just want to throw out a couple bucks just to help me out, that would be great. There's a link there for that as well. And if you want to email me, it's martharunstheworld@gmail.com. So until next week, let's tie up our shoelaces and go for a run.